Hello, my name is Simon from CramTheExam and welcome to another walkthrough of an FCE Part 2 Use of English question. The open-close question is a difficult question if you don't know what you're doing, but of course you do because you've practiced this question at least 2 times before on this 12-week course. So it shouldn't come as any shock. You would know what to do. That is to read through the text first, get a good idea of context, find out what's going on, what's the aim of the text, who's involved, so on. Make sure that as you're scanning through, as you do very quickly, get a good idea of what the text is all about. And this text, as the title gives it away, is about camping holidays and buying tents in particular. Now, this question you'll find on the Flojo website. Big fan of Flojo. I've used it a lot for the exam questions. So if you haven't checked out Flojo for the FCE or the CE or other English exam questions, then I strongly recommend that you do. Okay, let's go through this exam question and explain why the answers are the answers. Okay, as always, let's start off with the example question. Although it has a reputation for being rather basic in terms of home comforts, nice expression, home comforts, use that in your writing or in your speaking, nice advanced vocabulary, very naturalized. In terms of home comforts, the modern material used in, and it says here, the. Why is it the? Well, you've got a noun here, and just before the noun, you've got a gap. If you've got a gap before a noun, chances are it's going to be an article. And that's exactly what we need in this case. We need the correct article for the context. So the manufacturer of tents, meaning camping, is at least a something less hard work. Now, the context here is that we're not talking, we're talking about how much less hard work it is. And the context that we're given here is that it is a lot less hard work. So let's check our answer. So it's not a little bit, or we can't say little bit because it's 2 words and you can only put 1 word in the gap. So it's a lot less hard work. And number 2 really carries on that same idea, because for number 2 we need a word of emphasis to suggest how lightweight it is. So nowadays tents are something lightweight that you hardly notice you're carrying them. So the word of emphasis that we need for this is so. Are so lightweight that you hardly notice you're carrying them. They're easy to put up, yet still a cheaper alternative to hotel accommodation. Right, now we're going on to the bit about buying tents. And we have to pay attention to the context and vocabulary in this text. Talk to an expert first before spending a lot of money a tent. Here what we need is a preposition to complete the phrasal verb. You spend, and that is you spend money in this case. And the preposition that we need for number 3 is on. So you spend money on a tent. You spend time on something. Spend energy on something. So spend is very often followed by on, followed by something else. So I said money, energy, time, 3 examples that come to mind. Different tents suit different needs. And there's no point something buying. If you're not familiar with this language structure, then make sure you're familiar with it now, because the preposition that we need to fit this language structure is in. So no point in plus gerund. No point in plus gerund. So no point in doing, no point in seeing, no point in flying, no point in talking. So you've got that structure to use. And no point in buying a mountaineering tent. You're planning to camp in these conditions. So what this is really trying to say is buy a mountaineering tent if you're going mountaineering, but if you're not going mountaineering, don't buy a mountaineering tent. So that's what this is trying to get at. But because we've got a negative structure here, we've got to use a negative form of the conditional. So if doesn't work here. So what is our negative conditional form? It is unless. So there's no point in buying a mountaineering tent unless you're planning to camp in these conditions. And then it says, don't be tempted to splash out. Splash out, nice phrasal verb, informal, meaning spending lots of money on all the latest equipment either. There's a nice expression, or a nice little motto. I'll write it in for number 5, just above my head. You can use this, I'll make the box just a little bit bigger. You can say, all the gear, no idea. So you can talk about this with people who have got lots of expensive equipment, but they don't know how to use it. So they've got all the gear, in other words, equipment, no idea. Okay. Number 6. Don't be tempted to splash out on all the latest equipment either. Most of the fun of camping lies in the chance to get back to nature. Nice expression, to get back to nature. There's no need to take anything more the basics. What we've got here is a simple comparative form. So words of comparison, in this case where you're comparing two things, this is going to be than. So there's no need to take anything more than the basics. Always try to plan your arrival at the site long before it gets dark. You will want to see, you're doing when you're trying to erect your tent. You can say put up your tent as well. Erect is a formal verb, but we can say put up as well. Now, what's the idea here? What this is basically trying to say is that you'll want to see the things that you're doing when you try to erect your tent, which makes sense. Putting up a tent might not be that easy. But the problem is we need one word in this gap, and which means the things which. And the word that we need is the relative pronoun what. The things what you're doing when you try to erect or put up your tent. Don't forget to ask for permission if you're not camping on the registered site, and remember to take a supply of food and drink with you. In the local shops are closed when you arrive. So what we've got here is another conditional structure. We can't say if because of this preposition in. So we've got to use an expression which means the same as if, which has got in already, and the expression that we need, let me just move that out here so you can see, is in case. So take a supply of food or drink with you in case, or if, the local shops are closed when you first arrive. So if you don't know that in case is synonymous with if, it's another conditional structure, then make sure that you're familiar with that now. And if you've forgotten that unless is used for negative conditionals, then that's also a good thing to remember as well. Unless has got a habit of popping up, particularly in this part 2 question, the open close of the use of English paper, not just for FCE, but for CAE as well. Okay, well, thank you very much for following me go through this exam question. If you've got any questions, if you want me to explain in a little bit more detail, or indeed if you think I'm wrong in any of the things that I'm saying, I'd love to hear from you. So leave a comment below. And remember that if you are working from a textbook, one of the more popular textbooks, my website, CramTheExam.com, might be able to help you out. So check that out as well. There's a link to that in the video description below. Okay, I'll see you again soon.